Only 2 of us survived the fog. Part 1. A week ago my friends and I went on vacation to the coast of Oregon to hide out in a beach house and get away from the stresses of regular life. It was meant to be normal and fun and just a great way to catch up with friends. Instead, it turned into a complete nightmare. I didn't realize anything like what happened could even be real. After having survived the time there, I decided to warn others. We were headed out near Cannon Beach, a place of lore and utter beauty. The house we had rented was somewhere between Silver Point Outlook and Lion Rock. It was fairly remote compared to other beach houses we had been to. At our back was the wild forest, and in front of us was the ongoing cold ocean. There were 4 of us: Jen, Amy, Jonah, and myself, Brett. We all packed up in Jonah's old 2000 Jeep Wrangler, making our way from our homes in Portland to our destination. We were headed out fairly late, but we had been waiting for the fog that had settled over Oregon that day to dissipate before we headed out. The fog never did. So at 9 p.m. we all packed into the Jeep and headed to our destination. Normally it would take about an hour and a half to get to our destination. But with the fog and limited visibility we would have crossing through the Rocky State Forest, we were taking it easy and slowly. "Damn," Jonah said as we were making our way through the state forest. He was squinting, as if that would help with his visibility between the thick fog and the dark of the early night. Weatherman said this weekend was going to be all sun. Well, it is Oregon. Amy laughed from the backseat. The dreary weather hadn't put a damper on her mood at all. "I bet it clears up tomorrow. If you need to pull over, don't be afraid to," Jen added in. Her hand reached from the back to pat Jonah gently on the shoulder. Jonah made a scoffing noise, as if offended. "No way. We'll get there." But the fog kept getting thicker and thicker. At one point his headlights weren't doing anything but making it harder to see, as if the light had hit a mirror were being reflected back into the car. "I think you should stop," Jen commented. This time when she spoke there was concern in her voice. "You can't see at all. We don't want to run off the road." This time Jonah made no protest. He pulled as far as could go to the side of the road without hitting the guardrail, then put his hazards on. As soon as he put the car in park, he glanced at me. An unspoken quick conversation happened between our eyes. We decided together to get out of the car and see if it got better ahead. Sometimes the fog was like that. The thickness might just break abruptly. As we unbuckled, the girls did the same in the back. "No, just stay here," Jonah told them. "We're gonna walk a bit ahead and see if the fog breaks." "Fuck that noise," Amy retorted, already opening her door. "I am not going to sit here and get eaten." Jen's head swiveled quickly at her. "The fuck, I'm just saying." Amy shrugged back at her. This seemed to convince Jen that she didn't want to be left alone in the Jeep. We all left the Jeep and started walking forward. The fog was so thick we could practically taste it, metallic and cold. We were only maybe 100 yards from the car when I noticed something funny. "I can't hear anything." The second I spoke it was like my voice froze in the air and then dropped as a dead weight. The others exchanged glances with each other, now becoming hyper-aware. As we walked our footsteps fell heavy, the only sound we could make out in the dead silence. There are no sounds of owls or rustling in the trees. "We should go back to the car." While the words came from Jonah's mouth, they traveled straight to the ground. No one said another word, just turned back around and made our way to the Jeep. As we neared it, I felt my ears pop, and then the sounds returned. Suddenly I could hear the gentle call of the wind, distant insects chirping, rustling in the leaves. As we got in and shut the doors, it felt as if the sound had returned to normal. No one said anything. Jonah just turned the car back on and started driving forward again. It was unspoken. We wanted to get away from here and just get the fuck to the beach house. It was a fairly normal drive after that. The fog seemed to lift just a little the closer we got to our destination. Eventually the forest line broke and we could see the outline of the ocean in the distance. We drove down an unpaved, gravel road straight up to the small beach house. That night we didn't do anything but get into our beds and sleep. It wasn't until the next day that things went from weird to terrifying. The fog hadn't lifted through the night. It remained as a white blanket over the sand and made the ocean black and tumultuous. Despite this, it was our week and we were set on having a good time. So we going outside that afternoon when the sun was highest in the sky and allowed for a bit more brightness. Jonah and I were walking along the edge of the water, our feet being lapped at by the cold water, when it started getting darker, as if the sun had been blipped out of the sky. A second later, we heard Amy screaming. "Brett! Jonah!" she screamed. I had never heard her scream like that before, as if her life depended on it. We both darted forward, following the sound of her voice until coming upon her spinning around wildly, looking everywhere. "What?" Jonah asked breathlessly. "What's wrong?" "It's Jen." Amy screamed. 1 second she was here. And then she was gone. It got so quiet, like the other night. I don't know where she is." "Well, she couldn't have gone far." I offered. "We'll search for her." We searched for what must have been an hour, but never found Jen. When we met back up at the beach house, we all tried our cell phones to call for help, but no one had any service. "What the fuck are we going to do?" Amy asked, her voice cracking. "Jen's out there. It's okay." Jonah reassured her. "I'll go into town and find some help. You two stay here in case Jen comes back, okay? There's no way you can see out there." I interjected. "It's fucking black as midnight out there. It's like I stopped myself. Like last night." Amy's voice was quiet, full of fear. "Just like last night. We got here fine." Jonah reminded the two of us, "And I'll be fine. Just stay here and wait for Jen. I'll go get some help." So Amy and I waited. And we waited. And we waited until eventually night fell. Jonah nor Jen ever returned.